Now, for this week's lecture, or at least our first lecture here in week 12? Yeah, we're week 12. Real quick hit, make sure you go back and check the video I posted about last week, this week, and next week. I posted a little video giving a breakdown to hopefully help alleviate some confusion about some of the stuff and what we're doing here online. But what I want to do in this video here, in this little lecture, is turn our attention to what's going to happen once you have turned in, which you should be doing so at the latest tonight, 3 paragraphs from your argument paper. Now, we've looked at examples like this before. If you remember back a couple weeks, I handed you out 2 examples when we were doing a breakdown of the structure where there's that sample and you can go back and look at it, where I gave you like 3 paragraphs, and before I gave you the paragraphs, I gave you a thesis statement so that you could sort of see how things should connect back to that thesis. Now, remember, those examples weren't perfect, and I talked a little bit and deconstructed them, but I wanted to return to this example that I had shared with you guys about what you should be posting. And so if I'm looking over this, what you're going to do in this week's forum is when I give you feedback, you're going to then look at the notes I give you, and I'm going to be asking you to respond to me with some information. Ideally, I want you to ask questions about things that I said in the feedback. Now, typically, the feedback you're going to get is I'm going to pull this up in the forum, and I'm just going to type feedback in based on what I see. So let's use this as an example here. So say, for example, this is the stuff I'm looking at. This is part of somebody's argument. What I'm looking for, and what I'm hoping to help out with, is that as I look at this, I want to see how well did you apply the things. Do you have a topic sentence? Do you have some sort of statement or claim? If not, that's okay. But you definitely need to make sure that you have an integrated quotation. And then you need to have explanation. And so we're looking at this person here. All right, we got a topic sentence. Here is an integrated quotation. Take a moment here. Notice how the integration works. So this should all flow together. The thing that's distinguishing here is that the quotation marks allow us to understand this as being somebody else's words, not his own. All right, and then he closed quotations here. Here is citation. Here is the punctuation. All right. All right, now after this, there should be some explanation. So let's take a look at this and just look at this as an example. It says, an individual hiding their sexuality can be one of the biggest tragedies in their life and for them to cope with. As a LGBT drug rehab stated, hiding your sexuality is not only an unhealthy way to live, but it can also lead to the development of an addiction as you try to find a means of coping with your conflicting emotions. Close quote. Harms of hiding sexual orientation. Explanation. Because not only is that person hurting themselves, but it affects the people who are involved in it. Also, other people who are involved with that person. It can cause stress and strain on it should be those who truly care about them. Now, if I'm giving feedback here, the thing that I would say doesn't work for me is the integration could have been a little bit better. And since they didn't give me any kind of statement or claim, but just a topic sentence, I want them to maybe give me more explanation. I feel like they just took the quote and then hopped right along to their next point and treated that as kind of explanation. I think it would have been better served if maybe they had followed up here afterwards with maybe a statement like, and so if for your sake, if I said to you, hey, go back and look at your explanation on some of these paragraphs, are you doing enough to explain things? What it might be better here is for them to sort of, since they gave us this quote about hiding your sexuality is an unhealthy way to live, maybe rephrase it using your own words to make sure that the audience clearly understands the relevance of this before you then explain it. And then it would probably be healthier for them to make sure that they're drawing direct connections to whatever it is their graphic novel's about, because this one is actually here about this graphic novel as well. Maybe making a more direct reference in the explanation. Now, I will say that this paragraph here is a little bit better because they do attempt to explain here and restating the quotation. So they do make improvements, but those are the kind of things I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to be looking to see what advice can I give you about your lead up to a quotation or a source, using of source material. Are you using enough source material? Are you doing enough to explain and connect it to what it is you are arguing or talking about? And then sort of see where you are in terms of what you're producing. Now, granted, I'm going to be seeing a small sample size with just 3 paragraphs, but the idea should be that when I look at this and give you feedback, this can be something you apply universally across the board. So it shouldn't be just something that's limited to only this, because this is ultimately going to be hopefully part of your actual research paper. Now, this person did 4 paragraphs, but you'll notice here 4 paragraphs mainly almost got them to 2 pages. And I'm asking you to do 6. So if you did 6, this would maybe get to 3 pages, which means that probably you're going to need to churn out, in addition to 3 this week and the 3 next week, you're probably going to need to add maybe 3 more. But if you think about how we space this out, week 11, week 12, week 13, if you produce 3 for week 11, you're going to make 3 more for week 12, and then week 13 leading up to that April 12th submission date, if you produce 3 more, you should be probably in good standing, because this will hopefully push you close to, if not on to, page 6, which is where you'd ideally want to be. So that's what I'm trying to do. We're trying to, again, install this in segments. If you think about the writing workshops, they are designed to break down the paper into its components. What I'm doing right now is simply asking you to break down one of those components, the argument, which happens to be the largest one, into more digestible chunks to hopefully make it a little bit easier on you to produce material. Because when time comes and we get this down to the peer review and the rough draft, what's going to be crucial for making improvements will be that you have an entire paper. Maybe you don't have the page length yet, but having the entire set of material from beginning to end, that means introduction with thesis, background, argument, counter-argument, conclusion, works cited. Even if you haven't quite yet made the length or the full length of what the paper is asking you to do, if you have all those parts, it lets me and it lets others, when we do the peer review, go back and look at what you have and be able to see if there's a place or a gap or something where you could say more. All right? So hopefully this will help you guys out. So when you start getting feedback from me tomorrow, this is what I want you to be responding to. And I'm going to go back and make a little bit more clarification on the discussion forums just to make sure you know exactly what you need to be doing. Because what I really want you to do with this lecture and with Discussion Forum 1 for week 12 is I really want to turn it into an opportunity for you and me, as well as your fellow classmates, to engage in some dialogue, to take a look at what we have and what we have produced and ask questions and reflect, so that we can then move on and do this again next week, at the end of this week, and then again next week, and then hopefully be working us towards having what we need to have together for the research paper itself. And so ultimately what would end up happening is I would come in here, and so you would just simply need to return to, once you've submitted it, it'll simply be popped up back here inside this section where you'll have submitted the comments, and will be in there. You'll just simply need to extract them and then apply what you need to after you've seen this video to filling in your original post. And keep in mind with your original post that unlike last week, because of the late start here, I'm actually giving you until Thursday to post your original response, okay? And you'll see that I provide a little step-by-step here as well. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna expand upon this idea of asking questions. I'm gonna give you just a little bit more specifics so that you can really focus in, and hopefully we can turn this into a good dialogue that we can use to make improvements, not only going forward here, but hopefully revising our paper going forward to the end of the course.